They had the kind of life that made people jealous. Designer clothes, private holidays, brand new luxury cars with custom plates, smiles on Instagram, champagne in hand. The illusion of happiness so well packaged it could have been sold on shelves. But behind the closed doors of that perfect life was the beginning of something monstrous. A betrayal so brutal, so calculated. It didn't end with heartbreak. It ended with a man, naked, tortured, and dying slowly on the cold floor of his own home. Murder alone couldn't describe it. A cold, calculated act dressed up as something almost cinematic. Each move was rehearsed, every moment designed to disturb. 2 hours of cruelty, 61 injuries, and the person who set it all in motion, his ex-wife. Back in 2008, Thomas Campbell had what most would consider stability. A full-time job, steady income. But stability wasn't enough. Not for Thomas. He wanted more. Then one day he simply quit, walked away from the grind. No plan, no notice, just gone. He signed up for government benefits, and with that decision, something shifted. Colleen Campbell, his wife, quietly followed suit. On paper, she worked a modest 16-hour job at a local clothing store. But like Thomas, the paper trail was a lie. Their bank accounts suggested poverty. Their lifestyle screamed wealth, and nobody asked questions. How did a couple claiming income support afford £10,000 holidays to Mexico, a beautiful home in Manchester, exotic holidays in Cancun? How did they drive multiple luxury cars while reporting almost no income? A garage that looked more like a car showroom. BMW X5, Mercedes C63, Audi A3, everyone brand new, every plate customized. And how did no one notice for 5 whole years? Well, someone eventually did. In 2014, Greater Manchester Police launched Operation Harness, a deep-digging investigation into drug trafficking across the Clayton area. And right there, front and center, were the Campbells. But if you thought that pressure would break them, you don't know Thomas Campbell. He didn't panic, he rebranded. Suddenly, Thomas was no longer unemployed. He was a self-employed fitness instructor, or so his new documents claimed. Instagram posts of gym workouts appeared. His arms were flexed, his smile was wide. It was a desperate, last-minute mask thrown over a face everyone was already starting to recognize. But the police weren't buying it. To most, he looked like just another charming face at the gym. But behind the scenes, he moved weight for one of Manchester's deadliest drug networks. And the net was tightening. In 2019, the game ended. Thomas Campbell pled guilty to money laundering and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Colleen followed shortly after, receiving 16 months. They served their time, paid their dues, or so it seemed. But prison didn't reform them, it shattered them. By the time they came out in 2021, the luxury was gone, and so was the loyalty. And then came the final cut. Thomas, once the love of Colleen's life, was now sleeping with one of her closest friends. For Colleen, that betrayal was nuclear. He didn't just break her trust. He broke her pride in front of the world. After everything, the lies they built, the empire they faked, he had now made her a fool. The confrontation was brutal, screaming, accusations, and just like that, their toxic bond snapped in two. They went their separate ways. But hate, it doesn't always fade. Sometimes it festers. And Colleen didn't just feel betrayed, she felt replaced. That's when the most dangerous connection happened. Colleen met John Belfield, the ex-boyfriend of the same woman Thomas had been having an affair with. He was furious. She was vengeful. Together, they were deadly. Their DMs on Instagram started as venting. By week's end, they were planning a robbery. Only this wasn't just about stealing Rolexes. It was about power. It was about payback. And it was about making Thomas Campbell suffer. Colleen provided everything: his routine, his whereabouts, the exact school he picked his daughter up from, times, dates, patterns, and Belfield. He built the team. He brought in Stephen Cleworth, the quiet follower with a dark streak. He added Ree Stephen, a man who knew how to move unnoticed. And soon, they had a full crew, and a target who had no idea his days were numbered. From that moment on, he was never truly alone. Cleworth followed Thomas to his daughter's school. As Thomas bent down to buckle his child's seatbelt, Cleworth reached beneath the van and slapped a GPS tracker on it. By now, Thomas Campbell was living on borrowed time. It was a Saturday night when death came for Thomas Campbell. He'd been tracked for days, watched, followed, predicted. The GPS on his van showed the crew everything they needed. It was designed to look like a robbery, but it was always a setup. And tonight was the execution. As Thomas unlocked the door to his own home, unaware of the danger just feet away, the attackers crept up and ambushed him. They dragged him inside, kicked the door shut behind them, and for the next 2 hours, Thomas Campbell lived through hell. He was beaten with fists and feet, punched, stomped, slammed into the floor. They tore off his clothes, left him in nothing but his socks. Then they boiled a kettle and poured scalding hot water onto his bare skin, focusing on his buttocks. A deliberate, degrading move meant to humiliate as much as hurt. They didn't just kill him, they made it hurt. 61 separate injuries, all in the supposed safety of his own hallway. By the time they left, he was barely alive, and he died there, alone, naked, burned, bleeding. He was discovered the next morning by a horrified neighbor.
Ambulance emergency, tell me exactly what's happened.
Hi, sorry, I'm a bit in shock. There's a guy's body lying here. There's loads of kids living on the street. I really don't want them to see any of this.
Thomas Campbell's death was violent, sadistic, and entirely avoidable. He hadn't just been murdered, he'd been hunted, and the person who led the wolves to his door was his ex-wife. But Colleen Campbell, she didn't hide, she didn't run. She played the grieving widow. On Facebook, she wrote, 13 years and 2 beautiful children, forever grateful. I'd do anything to hear your giddy laugh or your non-stop moaning just one more time. She posted tributes, pictures, memories. She stood at his memorial, hugged his family, cried crocodile tears, all while knowing exactly what had happened. Imagine the audacity. To organize the funeral of the man you helped destroy, to stand beside his mother while hiding the knife behind your back. But evil doesn't always stay hidden. It slips, it brags, it tries to outsmart everyone. And that's exactly what Colleen did. Less than 2 weeks after the murder, Greater Manchester Police made their first arrest. Stephen Cleworth, the man who'd stalked Thomas at his daughter's school. The pieces started falling. Texts, surveillance, GPS data. Then they looked for the ringleader, John Belfield. By the time authorities moved in, he was gone. Vanished. Police believed he'd fled to Tenerife. But the search widened. Interpol issued alerts. The manhunt stretched across continents. And on March 23rd, 2023, almost a year after Thomas's murder, they found him, hiding in Suriname, South America. He was arrested by local authorities and prepped for extradition back to the UK. His face once smug and defiant, now looked tired. But justice was patient, and justice doesn't forget. Meanwhile, another key name emerged, Stephen. Though he wasn't there during the attack, he had been deep in the planning. Investigators confirmed he'd been drunk at a swingers club the night of the murder. But that didn't save him. He was charged with manslaughter and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 12 years. One by one, the walls closed in. But Colleen, she was still walking free, still playing the victim, still lying until she slipped in a moment of arrogance or guilt. She told Thomas's mother something she should never have known. Details about the murder, specific, grisly, private details that had never been released to the public. When asked how she knew, she gave an answer that defied belief. She claimed Thomas's ghost had visited her, that a spiritual friend had passed on the message from beyond the grave. That was it. The final straw. Thomas's mother went straight to the police. Colleen's mask cracked, and finally it shattered. She was arrested, and this time, there was no escape. Colleen Campbell was arrested. No more Instagram posts, no more dramatic tributes, no more pretending. Now it was her turn to face what she'd helped unleash. But even in cuffs, even under pressure, she insisted she never meant for Thomas to die. It was all about stealing the Rolexes. That was her story. That was her out. But the evidence said otherwise. Greater Manchester Police dug deeper. At first it looked like chaos, but the deeper they dug, the more it felt like someone planned every move. It was cold, calculated, and meant to end in blood. And at the center, Colleen. They pulled CCTV from her house. It showed her speaking to John Belfield for a full 30 minutes before the attack. Not once, not in passing, but multiple times. They met in person too, coordinating, planning, plotting. Police confirmed she knew about the GPS tracker. She even knew which school Thomas picked up his daughter from. Information only someone deeply close to him could know. Someone with motive, someone with rage. The court saw everything. They heard how Colleen had fed Belfield the exact time Thomas returned home. They watched footage of her helping organize the setup, and they read messages, chilling, casual messages, between a woman scorned and a man with a violent plan. But still, Colleen claimed innocence. She told the jury she was just angry, that she wanted him scared, not dead. But the jury didn't believe all of it, and they didn't believe none of it either. In a twist that left many stunned, Colleen was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. She wasn't the one who swung the weapon, but she was the reason it was swung. She didn't boil the water. She only led them to the man who'd feel it, and for that, the court gave her 12 years in prison. She'll serve at least 8 before she can even think about release. From flashy handbags to cold prison bars, a fall as brutal as the crime itself. What makes a woman destroy the man she once vowed to love? What makes someone so angry they'd rather see blood than healing? Colleen Campbell didn't just betray a man, she betrayed her own children for revenge. And in the end, no Rolex was recovered, no money was stolen, only a life was taken and many others shattered. Thomas Campbell wasn't innocent. He was a liar, a criminal. He played in dangerous circles, but nobody deserves what happened to him. Not even him. Because love turned to vengeance is a terrifying thing. It doesn't kill quickly. It plans, it waits, it wraps itself in grief, then strikes in silence. And Colleen Campbell, she wore that mask until the very end. An execution, signed by the woman who once said, "I do." This was a Balaclava's original. Subscribe, because the masks always fall. Eventually,